There was an elderly woman, and she had one eye, and she was in a park, and not far from City Hall, and not far from the parking garage, where we left the minivan when we went to the Cardinals game. And she had one eye and held a sign that said, "Please help, anything helps, everything helps." And I looked right past her and looked right through her. And I was 5 or 6, maybe, at the time, and I never saw her again. But every time I was downtown, I saw her eye, sometimes twofold, sunken in the sockets of someone who aged the way milk does, left out in a place that just is not good, or worse, is good, but destroys them. And we, my whole family, walked past the elderly woman with one eye and did nothing but look away. And I do not know a whole lot about the process of getting an eye removed and what leads to that situation or what that surgery looks like, if there even is one. But I know that this woman's missing eye left behind a socket that was nearly flush up against her bone, a reminder that we are not skin or muscle, but the brain and cord in between it all. Get rid of the fluff and we tend to look the same. And at the time I did not know what homelessness was, and my home was so fundamental to my existence, and it did not make sense to just not have one, and the woman did not have one. She only had one eye too. And she had one eye, but I am sure saw more of us than we did of her when we looked both ways to cross the street to get to the block with the parking garage where we left our minivan to drive back home in a neighborhood that did not feel like the city but was inside it all the same. And I saw a woman with one eye that night and every day and afternoon whenever I am in downtown. I see with both of my eyes too many eyes that match her one. And the elderly woman with one eye had questionable vision to begin with, but her operating eye did not seem fully functioning either, and perhaps it was blindness or maybe the age that comes when you are distressed or alone or hurting, the age that ages you way too fast. And I saw the woman was elderly, but maybe she was young. And what stopped me from being her? And what gave me both eyes and a home? And is anything stopping me from being her? And could I still be her now? And I seem to be too far away from everything. And my house is in the south, but it's too far to be in South City. And my house is in the west, but it is too close to be in the county. And my house is in the city, but it is too far from the crime that I only hear about and rarely see. And my house is a walk away from Ted Drew's, but Ted Drew's is not a real place, and it is not somewhere you go and you find yourself there. And floating through time and space in a line that is both too long and bafflingly fast so that you can get a frozen custard, not ice cream, made from the steel and cement that holds up the arch, a female monument in a phallic world. And maybe the worst part is that I don't actually like Ted Drew's, or Imo's, or toasted ravioli. I never liked ravioli. And gooey butter cake is alright, but if I eat too much it makes me sick. And as a child I knew what self-control was, but I did not need it, and so I got sick more often than not from the cake. And no one else I know seems to care about frozen custard and Imo's pizza and toasted ravioli or gooey butter cake either. And St. Louis culture is just what we do. And I go to the county, which I did not really understand as a kid, and sometimes do not understand now, for a number of different reasons. And that is where the grocery store is, and that is where my grandparents live, and every now and then something of interest does pop up somewhere. And I am never more aware of the things that make up St. Louis culture. More precisely, the culture that appears in those food magazines that crop up in the Whole Foods where they sell things like kombucha or gluten-free waffles, than when I am in the county, and everyone talks about the Cardinals, and everyone talks about Ted Drew's, and everyone harps about toasted ravioli, and it did not make a lot of sense to me as a kid, and now it just makes me sad. And we were all in the city, the folks that I grew up with, and we did not really have any other options when in Rome. And in the county, or at least when I am in the county, which is often West County, perhaps the others are different, it feels like they have to remind themselves that they live in St. Louis, but a really specific St. Louis. And I have rarely seen a Vess outside of the city, and Red Hot Riplets are met with a, "Huh? What's that?" when I talk to my county friends. And what culture is winning in the county? And is culture even winning in the county, or is it just muddying like everything else in suburbia feels like it is? And what happens when you only have to leave your house to get groceries, and everything else just shows up at your doorstep to be shuffled inside by a man whose father was shocked anyone would want to live outside of the city? And when in Rome, there aren't many people other than Romans, and in St. Louis, sometimes it feels like there aren't many people at all. And in my neighborhood, it's okay. There are plenty of people, and they bore into trees faster than the emerald ash borers do, but it's for a parish picnic that will get rained out just like last year, so it's okay in the way that the clerk at the BP overlooks 50 cents when I get a soda, but only have two $1 bills on me. And I have heard it said that you help people who are like you, but the clerk at the BP, whose name I ought to learn because he's a very, very nice guy, is very much not like me, and the only thing we may have in common is the city itself, which is weird because the city is a big place, even though it's only 66 square miles, and the clerk at the BP probably would have given money to the elderly woman with one eye. And sometimes I wonder if he is disappointed when I do not help people, especially after he helps me. And where you are is who you are, and I am as much that clerk in the BP as I am the woman with one eye, as I am me and as they are me. And they want to reunite the city and the county, and I'm not quite sure who they are, and truthfully, I'm not quite sure they do either. And apparently bringing the city and county together will promote economic growth. At least that's the really abstract phrase that a friend of mine said, and I do not know what economic growth means exactly, and he did not really either, but it is growth, so it must be good, right? And growth means more houses get built, right? And that more businesses show up or more people move back into the city. But what actually is the city after reunion? And there are a lot of people, some who only have one eye, that do not know what is going on and do not care what is going on. And they do not care not because they are apathetic, but because they cannot afford to waste time caring about abstract reunifications for two entities that have always been separate, whether it was one county or two. And maybe reunification happens anyway, and we would be in the top 10 largest cities in America, which, though cool for the Wikipedia page, does not really do a whole lot for anyone in need. And if you are homeless in Pocatello or you are homeless in New York City, then you are still homeless. And if reunification is going to work, it needs to help people and not a statistic or a business model. And if someone is freezing in Soulard, how is a $400,000 house in Chesterfield going to help them? And are local businesses going to pop up, or are chains going to grow farther faster? And if we build new, what happens to the old, or is the old building the new? And there are thin gray lines called roads that divide the world and separate the healthy from the healing, from the sick from the dying, from the dead. But the healthy and the healing and the sick and the dying and the dead are irrelevant. And these are people we are talking about. And the elderly woman with one eye needs help too, and is reunion going to help her? And did you know that 1 in 4 children under 18 in the city are food insecure? And did you know that about 1 in 10 children in the county under 18 are food insecure? And I forget about them too. And there are a lot of people in need, and abstract redistinctions of the place where we live do not feed people and do not house people and do not keep them warm, and reunification has a lot of abstracts tacked onto it that are good and bad, but abstracts are abstract. Does reunification help people and actually help them and give them what they need? And I cannot say it does. And I hope I am wrong. Thank you.